She looked like his dream, but behind her smile was a hidden agenda that could destroy his fortune and his heart. A millionaire thought he found true love, until shocking secrets exposed a gold digger's deception that nearly cost him everything. She pretended to love him, but her plan was never romance. It was a calculated scheme to steal his trust and wealth. He gave her his world, unaware her affection was a lie, and the truth would reveal betrayal deeper than he imagined. The story begins with an atmosphere of charm and quiet wealth. Daniel Widmore was known throughout the city as a self-made millionaire, the type of man who built his fortune not on inheritance or shortcuts, but through years of sleepless nights, bold risks, and relentless determination. At 38, Daniel was the kind of figure magazines adored. Handsome, polished, successful, yet approachable enough to seem almost ordinary when he chose to. He preferred the quiet power of discretion rather than the loud display of arrogance, and it was this understated charisma that made people admire him. Behind the walls of his penthouse overlooking the skyline, Daniel's life was curated to perfection. A successful real estate empire, influential friends in politics and business, and an enviable lifestyle that many dreamt of but few achieved. Yet, beneath it all, Daniel carried a subtle loneliness, a space unfulfilled that money could never quite touch. He was admired, respected, but not truly known by anyone. And that was precisely what made him vulnerable when she entered his world. Her name was Vanessa Holt, a woman of elegance and mystery. On the surface, she was everything a man like Daniel might have wished for: stunning beauty, effortless grace, a smile that disarmed even the most guarded soul, and an uncanny ability to make a man feel like the center of the universe when she spoke. Their first encounter was almost cinematic, the kind of moment that felt like destiny rather than coincidence. Daniel had been attending a charity gala for urban housing, one of his frequent philanthropic commitments. Vanessa appeared there as if she belonged, dressed in an emerald gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. She seemed new to the crowd but not out of place, weaving conversations with confidence, her laughter a melody that carried across the room. Daniel noticed her before she noticed him, or perhaps that's only how it seemed. In truth, she had already set her eyes on him long before that evening. What Daniel didn't know, and what the guests around him couldn't have guessed, was that Vanessa was not there by chance. She had done her research, studied the players of the city's elite circles, and marked Daniel as her opportunity. For her, this wasn't about romance, it was about strategy. She was ambitious, calculating, and determined to climb out of the life she had grown tired of. She had tasted the struggles of mediocrity, the endless bills, the fading prospects, and she wanted more. Much more. She wanted the kind of security and luxury that only a man like Daniel could provide. And so, every detail of her presentation that night, from the dress to the subtle way she positioned herself within Daniel's line of sight, was orchestrated with precision. When their eyes finally met, Vanessa played the role flawlessly. She didn't rush to him, didn't appear overly eager. Instead, she allowed Daniel to approach, as if she were granting him the chance to step into her orbit. They exchanged words, casual at first, and within minutes Daniel was captivated. She asked questions about his passions, not just his businesses, and listened intently, as if his answers mattered more than anything else in the world. It was intoxicating. For a man used to people seeking him out for favors or connections, her undivided attention felt refreshing, genuine even. He didn't see the careful calculations behind her eyes, nor did he sense the subtle hooks she was placing in his emotions. To Daniel, it was the beginning of something real. To Vanessa, it was the opening act of her most ambitious performance. Over the following weeks, Daniel and Vanessa became inseparable. Their romance unfolded in a blur of high-end restaurants, late-night conversations, and private getaways. She seemed to fit seamlessly into his world, adapting with uncanny ease. She laughed at the right moments, shared just enough about her own life to seem authentic, and created the illusion of vulnerability that made Daniel feel protective of her. The more time they spent together, the deeper Daniel fell. He began to imagine a future with her, one where his wealth and her beauty combined into a storybook life. What he didn't realize was that Vanessa's vulnerability was a mask, a carefully crafted illusion designed to gain his trust and weaken his defenses. Behind closed doors, Vanessa's true nature revealed itself in small, fleeting glimpses. A sudden coldness when Daniel's attention wavered. A flicker of irritation when discussions turned away from luxury or lifestyle. A quiet satisfaction when expensive gifts appeared in her hands, as though these tokens were not just symbols of affection but trophies of conquest. She was skilled at hiding her motives, but no performance is perfect forever. And slowly, cracks began to form in the facade. Daniel's closest friend, Marcus Bennett, was the first to notice. Marcus had known Daniel since their college days, back when Daniel was hustling to build his first small real estate venture. He had been there through the struggles, the triumphs, and the sacrifices. And he knew his friend better than anyone. When Vanessa entered the picture, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just the speed of the relationship or the way Daniel seemed unusually distracted. It was Vanessa herself. Marcus sensed an emptiness behind her charm, a kind of practiced perfection that didn't sit right. He tried to voice his concerns, but Daniel, blinded by infatuation, brushed them aside. Love, or what Daniel thought was love, had made him deaf to warnings. Still, Marcus didn't give up. Quietly, he began to observe Vanessa more closely. He noticed the way her eyes lingered on the most expensive items in a store, how her conversations often circled back to wealth, security, or lifestyle. He saw the subtle manipulations, how she would draw her warmth if Daniel resisted her suggestions, only to flood him with affection the moment he relented. To Marcus, it was clear. She was playing a game, and Daniel was the prize. But convincing his friend of that truth would prove far more difficult than he imagined. As months passed, Daniel's life began to subtly shift under Vanessa's influence. He made decisions that surprised those around him, sudden investments in luxury projects, an increased focus on appearances rather than substance, and an uncharacteristic neglect of certain business responsibilities. His employees whispered about the changes, unsure of what to make of their once steady and strategic leader becoming distracted by his personal life. Vanessa, however, thrived in this environment. The deeper she embedded herself into Daniel's world, the closer she came to securing the future she had envisioned. Yet, deception is a dangerous game, and the higher the stakes, the greater the risks. Vanessa's hidden agenda was not just about enjoying the present, it was about securing control. And Daniel, blinded by love, was handing her the keys without realizing it. Daniel's world was glowing with the illusion of love, but behind the soft lights and carefully rehearsed smiles, the storm was brewing. Vanessa Holt had already maneuvered herself deep inside his personal life, and her charm had convinced most of his acquaintances that she was the perfect partner for him. Yet, the closer she got to achieving her plan, the more dangerous her position became. Greed has a way of exposing itself in subtle ways, and it was only a matter of time before Daniel began to notice what Marcus had seen from the very beginning. One evening, Daniel invited Vanessa to a private dinner at his penthouse. The city skyline stretched endlessly beyond the glass windows, a reminder of all he had built. Vanessa, wearing a sapphire dress that clung to her form, smiled as if she owned the world already. She knew Daniel had something important to say. His nervous energy betrayed him. When the dessert was placed between them, Daniel gently took her hand. His words came with sincerity. He spoke of his dream of building a life with her, of wanting her to stand beside him not as someone temporary, but as his wife. Vanessa's heart should have raced with emotion, but what she felt instead was victory. She hid it well, feigning tears of joy, nodding and whispering yes. It was everything she had worked for. Daniel, blind to the truth, believed in that moment that he had found the missing piece of his life. As preparations for their future began, Vanessa's mask began to slip more often. She demanded more involvement in his finances, suggested merging accounts for simplicity, and hinted at the idea of signing over properties into joint ownership. Daniel, still lost in love, didn't realize the subtle trap being set. But Marcus noticed. He pressed harder, urging Daniel to pause and look beyond the glitter. "You're rushing into this," Marcus warned. "Her story doesn't add up. Have you ever wondered why she appeared exactly where you were, at the exact time, and seemed to know everything that matters to you?" Daniel grew defensive. He didn't want to believe Marcus, not when his heart was invested so deeply. Love, or the illusion of it, clouded his judgment. But fate has a way of revealing the truth when denial becomes too heavy. One afternoon, while Vanessa was out, Daniel received a call from a private investigator Marcus had quietly hired. The investigator's tone was calm but firm as he delivered the shocking details. Vanessa wasn't who she claimed to be. Her past was layered with half-truths and carefully erased histories. She had been involved with wealthy men before, always vanishing when situations turned risky, often leaving trails of financial exploitation behind. There were whispers of lawsuits settled quietly, of fortunes dented but reputations too fragile for public scandal. She was, in every sense of the phrase, a professional deceiver. A gold digger, skilled enough to pass as a soulmate. The words pierced Daniel like ice. His world, once glowing with trust, cracked beneath him. That evening, Vanessa returned to the penthouse with shopping bags filled with expensive purchases, things Daniel hadn't approved but had been charged to his accounts anyway. She kissed him casually, unaware that the tide had turned. Daniel didn't confront her immediately. Instead, he studied her carefully, noticing the little lies in her expressions, the rehearsed tones of affection, the way her phone buzzed with messages she quickly silenced. The love he thought he felt began to unravel, thread by thread, replaced with clarity. He realized he had been living inside a performance staged entirely for his benefit. The woman he adored was nothing more than an illusion crafted to secure his fortune. The next days unfolded like a high-stakes chess game. Daniel didn't want to accuse her outright without undeniable proof. He began to test her. He invented stories of false investments, mentioning losses that never happened, watching her reaction carefully. Each time, her mask slipped just slightly, irritation instead of comfort, annoyance instead of empathy. Love wasn't what she craved. It was wealth, stability, power. And once Daniel saw it, he couldn't unsee it. Marcus urged him to end things immediately, but Daniel wanted to expose the truth on his own terms. He knew if he confronted her too early, she would vanish like she had with others, slipping away before her deception could be held accountable. So, he played along, preparing a stage for the final reveal. Vanessa, confident in her success, didn't suspect the shift. She continued her performance, her voice dripping with affection, her hands reaching for what wasn't hers. The climax came during what Vanessa believed was their engagement announcement party. Daniel had arranged a gathering in his penthouse, inviting close friends, business partners, and Marcus. Vanessa, glowing in a designer gown Daniel had gifted her, walked through the room as though it were already hers. She beamed with pride, soaking in the admiration. Yet, what she didn't know was that Daniel had already uncovered her past. In the middle of the evening, Daniel raised a toast. His words were sharp but wrapped in politeness. He thanked his friends for their loyalty, spoke of the dangers of false appearances, and finally revealed the truth. Photographs, documents, and testimonies appeared on the screen behind him. The room fell into stunned silence. Vanessa's smile collapsed into panic. Her carefully built world shattered in front of the very audience she hoped to conquer. She tried to deny it, her voice trembling with desperation, but the evidence was undeniable. Her hidden agenda was no longer a secret. It was exposed, raw and humiliating. Friends turned cold, whispers filled the air, and the woman who had played her role so perfectly was suddenly stripped of power. Vanessa fled the penthouse that night, her dream in ruins, her carefully crafted plan destroyed. She vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only the bitter taste of betrayal. For Daniel, the experience was painful but transformative. He realized how close he had come to losing not just his fortune, but his identity. Trust, he understood, could not be given blindly, not when masks can be worn so convincingly. Marcus stood by him through the aftermath, reminding him that wealth may attract admiration, but true love could never be bought or performed. Daniel poured his energy back into his businesses, his charities, and into rebuilding his sense of self. He became more cautious, wiser, but not bitter. He learned to separate admiration from manipulation, to see beyond beauty and charm, and to value sincerity above all else. In time, the story of Daniel and Vanessa became a quiet legend whispered in the city's elite circles, a cautionary tale of how even the wealthiest can fall victim to deception when blinded by desire. And though Daniel's heart bore the scar of betrayal, he carried forward with strength, determined never to let illusion steal his truth again. And so ends the story of a millionaire's encounter with a hidden agenda and the shocking truth of gold digger deception. If you enjoyed this story and want more unforgettable storytelling, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for the next journey into the secrets of wealth, love, and betrayal.